Lord, I thank you for the fact that we're alive, and I thank you that we are here in this space that you have set aside for your people, for folks who have cultures that they want to preserve in the midst of this country of Scotland. But Lord, we are here because we are your people, and it's not about a culture other than the culture of heaven and of the kingdom of heaven. And so will you just come here by your Spirit, and will you just touch David and be with him and help him to guide? Because you know what I'm like, Lord, I talk. And sometimes I need to be guided and focused. Will you help me to be focused? And will you just do what you said that you would do for Moses? You said, I made man and I can fill man's mouth. So would you just do that now? And whatever comes of this, Lord, we just give it to you. And we say to you, Lord, have your way. Touch people where they need to be touched. Hit the nerves that need to be hit. But at the best of it, will you just help people to see themselves through your eyes and realise that you are intentional, that you're a God who gives people purpose. I ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Wow, that's glorious. All right, so we're starting off now. Today we have a beautiful guest with us. Her name is Ezme Petersen, right? And we're so delighted to have you around here. This is Save the Boys podcast, and I think this is our first video, on our podcast, and we're so glad to have you around. Welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Yeah. So from our conversations, I know you know what the Save the Boys is all about. I've given you an overview of what we're looking at to help the boy child grow and make the society better, but starting from the family. Your experience as a mother, how was it like for you raising your boy child, right? And generally raising your kids. I want you to talk to we, the younger generation. We need to hear your victories. We need to hear your struggles. We need to hear what inspired you to keep your home the way you kept it, and with the values, right?
Well, I grew up in a large family. There were 9 children.
Wow.
And there was one boy.
Whoa.
So right away you can understand that perhaps he was treated in a very different way, because there was all of these sisters, and that's my little brother. And when I had my own son, I remember looking at him and thinking, through the gap of the years, having seen boys at school, my brother at home, men at work, they all begin as babies. And that's someone else's child that's been raised to that particular point. And I remember looking at my son and saying, I have to raise you to be a man. I have to raise you to be a responsible man, and a man who loves the woman who comes into your life. That's my job. And if I fail, your life will be ruined. You might not see that it's ruined, but it will be, because you'll be missing the things that you need to be this responsible, loving, caring man. And one of the things I have to do is be very consistent in what I do with you. Now, I had a daughter, she was the firstborn. And when she was born, my attitude to her was, I need you to be a woman. I need you to know that you're loved by the man that's in your life. And I need you to have a sense of your wonder as a person in the world and what you have that you bring into this world, and to know that you are valuable. Now, to give you a bit of my testimony, I used to go to church when I was a little girl. I loved it. Church was a place to download and to learn. I just looked forward to Sundays. and I looked forward to Bible stories. And I left church when I was in my mid-teens because I didn't realise that I had depression. Because I would have these days when I would feel like I don't fit in this world. I don't belong. And so I started battling with depression when I was 10. And I got to a point where I don't fit in the church. But it was because I was the black person in a white church. I was a young girl among older people, and I didn't fit anyway. But when you're a child, you don't see all of that. You just feel what you feel.
Yeah.
So I battled with this thing for years. I got married when I was 23.
Wow.
But between leaving church in my teenage years and getting married, I decided at 17 there was no point in being alive. I just didn't fit. Everywhere I went, I didn't fit. And nobody seemed to care. And depression's a horrible thing. It robs you.
Yeah.
It robs you of truth. It robs you of your sense of self. So I decided to swallow a bottle of pills. So you're getting the story as it is. It was a Saturday. It was late in the evening. And I remember before the blackness took me, thinking, what have you done? You haven't left a note. No one knows why. And they'll be left to deal with what could we have done if we had known? Because it was all a secret. And that's the thing about depression. Most of the time, it's a big secret. Mental health is a big secret. I'm going to apologise to you for once. I weep. And I have come to terms with that because I believe that that's just God's way of showing that I am still human and I still care. So I have no issue with my weeping, and I hope you won't. So I woke up on the Sunday morning and I heard the church bells ringing. And I got up out of bed and I looked in the mirror in the bathroom and I saw my face. And I said to the mirror, never again. No matter how bad it gets, no matter what happens, I will never do this again. I need to live. And I didn't know where that came from. But that was the beginning of something that God was doing in me. So I got married and we had 2 children, but the marriage wasn't good. And I remember looking at my children and thinking something would have to change. And my husband left. He was having an affair and he left. And so my son is now almost 3 years old and my daughter is 4. And when he left, I thought, okay, I can do this. I know I can do this. I know it's going to take a lot from me. I know that I'm going to have to learn every day to deal with it's just me. There's no daddy in the house, so I will have to be mum, I will have to be dad, I will have to be playmate, I will have to be the person that they come and get upset with. I will have to be everything, and I will have to remember they're just children. They're trying to understand the world and grow in the world, and it's my job to absorb all that rubbish. So let me go back just a little bit from that. In the last few weeks before our marriage ended, I was in the bath and I was thinking about the end of the world. Armageddon. There's going to be some great big nuclear, the scientists were saying, meteor, the scientists were saying, and it's going to hit the earth and we're going to die. And I'm thinking, in the beginning, I'm thinking, oh, for goodness sake. But as time went on, because it was a consistent retelling, it begins to get into your mind. And I was lying in the bed in the bath, and I began to pray, and I hadn't prayed for years. And I was praying because I was concerned for my children. What is the point? Why would you let me have children? If you're going to destroy the earth, why would you let me have children so they don't have a future? And I heard a voice, and the voice said, you should read Revelation. You should read about Armageddon. And I thought, that's a brilliant idea. I've got a Bible, I haven't looked at it. It was a wedding gift, and it got put on a shelf. So I went and I found this thing, and I sat in bed and I started to read Revelation, and every night until the marriage ended, I sat in bed and I read Revelation. And I would say, I don't really know what I'm getting from this. But that's the wonder of God. We don't always understand, but He knows what He's doing. And what He was doing was filling the cup. And although Revelation to people is this catastrophe, it's the end times and goodness knows what's going to happen, and the 7 seals and the 7 golden lampstands, and there's, and the adulteress and yes. But no, because what God is talking about is things that we have absolutely no input in, and we're not going to be asked to touch. But what He was doing was filling the cup. The cup is empty. You've not been to me for years. I'm filling your cup. So when the end of my marriage came, there's something even bigger than the end of my marriage. There's Armageddon, there's all kinds of things that are in Revelation. This is not the end of my world. And it's an amazing thing to think that God can fill your cup in such a way and divert your attention so that this disaster is just a human disaster. And it's a thing that you trip over but you don't fall over. So I thought, what do I do? So the first thing I did, I was at school. I'd gone back to school to study music. I think I can make a career in music, I was thinking. And I went into school and I said to them on the Monday morning, because it all happened on a Saturday evening, I said, my marriage has failed, my husband is leaving, I don't want to do this exam again. I need you to push me, not let me fall away. Please don't feel sorry for me. Keep me moving. I want to get this exam done this year. I went to the nursery where my daughter was going and I explained it to them. And I said, if my daughter shows any signs of being emotionally upset, please contact me. I need to know that she's been upset. I went to another nursery where my children went to together in the morning, and I said to the teaching staff there, the marriage is over, I'm just concerned about the children, will you let me know if there's any issues? Yes, so that was all I could do. My son turned 3 just a couple of months later. And I remember looking at this little boy, and somebody said to him, oh, you'll be the man of the house now? And I thought, no, absolutely not. I'm not having people say that to my 3-year-old son. He's a child. That's this much responsibility on those shoulders. No. So I went to the person and said, he's just a boy. Don't talk to him like that. Oh, well, I said, don't talk to my son like that. He needs to play. He needs to have fun. He needs to bruise his knees and scrape his knees and not worry about anything else. I worry about being the mother. He's not my husband.
No, not at all.
He is my son. And that's it. So that was the first thing that I had to do. And I realised at that point it was battlefields. Battlefields because people's ideology, people's thinking was that you're a woman on your own and you need someone else. That's a whole other issue. That's not the important thing. The important thing is I'm a woman with 2 children. And I know that my job is to get them into adulthood without them being mentally destroyed and distraught by what happened. And I thought the best way to do that is to let them have childhood and deal with each stage as it comes. So that's how it began, David.
Wow.
That's how it began.
Wow.
When they were in school, I remember having said to their dad, be careful, because your daughter's going to school and you lose her very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Because from the moment they start school, it's the teacher. Mrs. So-and-so says.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what Mrs. So-and-so says.
Exactly.
And so the teacher becomes the most important and the dominant person in the life. And so I tried to say to him, be careful, because we got pushed back. So for me, being mum was about making sure they had playtime and making sure they felt safe and making absolutely sure that they would tell me what was going on in the world. So the first battle was, there are no secrets. If someone comes and says it's a secret, you come and tell me. Because anybody who needs to keep a secret with you is not somebody that I know. And I thought this is the thing about not trusting people who are viewing the children as victims of their bad behaviour. And so that was the first battle. Before they got to that point, I remember looking at my little baby daughter and talking to her, just talking. Oh, when you grow up, let's think, what could you be? You could be this and you could be that. And every day I would have these little conversations with my daughter. My mother-in-law, who was a brilliant woman, said to me one day, why do you talk to her? She's only a few months old. She doesn't know what you're saying. And I said to her, no, it's not about that. If I don't get into the habit of doing it, when she's old enough, my habit will be saying nothing. And I need her to know I have something to say, that I see the best in her, that I am really all for her. It's too late when they're 21. She's not one. So I'll practice and I'll get better as she gets older. So by the time my son came along, I was getting good at this, talking to your baby and telling him, oh, when you grow up, you're going to be this. And looking at him after Dad had left and thinking, you are a boy, and both of you are children who have grown up without Daddy. So, who will you be when you grow up now? My daughter, you can't be a broken, damaged girl. My son, you can't be all that matters in the house. You're the man of the house. No. But what you can be are children who grow up into adults who know you're loved, you know your worth, and you know that you have potential and that you have the capacity to do wonderful things. But you have to make the right decisions. So how do we get there? So I sat down at that point and I realised I needed somebody stronger and greater in my life. And so the first thing you do is you look at friends and you look in the world. But after about a year, I thought, I need God. I walked away from God, but I need God. And it's not like I need a friend. I need God in a different way. And I think what I didn't understand, but what was deep inside of me was, I need the vastness of God. I need the greatness of God in my life. Because He's much bigger than me. And He sees more than I ever will do. And He knows everything about me. And He knows why I was made.
Yeah.
And He knows why I survived. So I need God. But I can't go to church. I just can't go to church. I don't think I could go to church, because if I went into church, they'll just say to me, you're not welcome here, or, God will say, no. So I wrestled with that for quite a while, David. And then when my children came home from school one day, about 18 months after the marriage ended, my daughter said, "Mummy, one of my friends goes to a thing called Sunday school. Can we go to Sunday school?" And months before I had said, "God, I want my children to know you. But I don't want to just drag them along to church. However, if they say to me they want to go to Sunday school, then we'll go." So I said, "Yes, we can go to Sunday school," and off we went. And at that point I thought, if you're going to go, you go. You don't just pop in and out like it's us. You have to go. But you have to talk to your children about God. And you have to do it at their stage. They're little. They only understand so much. So we talked about God, and I would say to him, God is your best friend if you want him to be. And he's big, and he's got big shoulders, and you can tell God anything. Yeah. And I talked to them about prayer. And then one Sunday, my sister had come and stayed overnight, and she said, "Oh, I'm not going to that church with you. I'll come with me and I'll show you a different church." So we went to this, because we'd been going to Church of Scotland, very traditional, and we went to this modern church. And I went in the door, and I'm thinking, guitars, drum kit, and then there were 3 singers, and a keyboard, and I thought, I don't understand this. Because there was just a piano at our church. Anyway, go with the flow, said I. But the service started, and within 5 minutes the tears came. And I began to cry. And I thought, it's not sobbing, it's just water running down my face. Am I upset? No. What's going on? I don't know. But for 3 straight Sundays that happened. And finally I thought, is this God? Is this the kind of thing God would do? And I thought, I need to go home, and I need to surrender my life to God. So we got home, and I spoke to the children and let them go out and play. And I said to God, okay, from this point on, my life is yours. You're going to have to do a better job of my life than I have. It's a complete mess. It's a disaster, and I'm never going to get these children to adulthood. I can't do that. No matter how hard I try, it would just be a struggle the whole way. So I said to God, do what you've got to do, but I'm giving you a year. I'm giving you a year to make a difference, and if I don't see a difference in a year, I don't need you. Yeah. And I know you're not supposed to say things like that to God, but you see, God wants your whole you, your real you, everything, because I know that's in there. So in 2 weeks, I thought, wow, I feel very different. I feel very... But my son, I remember watching him play, and he was such a soft boy, very open and very, very wise. And I thought, how do I deal with you? Because there's a lot going on in here, but not a lot coming out of here. But I know that you're taking it all in. For instance, there was a day, he wasn't at school yet, and I picked him up from nursery, and I said to him, what will we do? And there was a knock at the door, and his little friend had said, can you come and play? And I said, off you go. So we had a big picture window, and I looked out, and they were playing quite the thing. I thought, I'll go make a cup of tea. And I said to him as he went, now, you're not supposed to go to the swing park. Yes, Mummy, so don't go to the park. I'm just pouring my tea, and there's a frantic knocking on the door, and there's the other boy's mother. Have you seen the children? Have you seen the children? No, and she was really panicked, and I thought they won't have gone far. Well, yeah. But I'm praying, God, please don't let them have gotten lost or have anybody taken them away. So we look around the immediate area, they're not there. And then I say, let's go to the park. They're not at the park. I've told them. And I said, no, let's go. So we walk to the park, and I know they're there. I just know that's exactly where they've gone. Sure enough, we're round the corner of the houses, and there's the swing park, and they're playing. And the other mother yelled. And I thought, nope, no shouting. No shouting. So I said to him, come on. And I put my hand out, and he came running, took my hand. And the other boy is getting...
Yeah.
And I said to him, I'm really upset. What did I say you weren't supposed to do? Go to the park? Okay. So you know now that you did a wrong thing?
Yeah.
Yes. I said, okay. Well, Mummy said if you went to the park, you would have to come in for the rest of the day, no more playtime. And unfortunately, there'll be no more playtime. So we're walking home, quite the thing. And I'm feeling really horrible about it. But anyway, we got in the house, and I thought, I've said it, I have to do it.
Yeah.
So I go into the house, and I think, make him a drink. And as I'm coming through, he's standing on a chair to look out of the window, and there's the friend out playing. The mum had said, you're not going out to play, and all the rest of it, and it's only 10 minutes, and there he is out playing. Mummy, he's out playing. And I said, yes. And he said, I said, but Mummy said you can't go out to play for the rest of the day, but we can play in the house. What would you like to do? And he's looking at me like, oh, right. And I thought, I will not shout at my children because they don't understand why I'm upset. They just know I'm upset. I will tell them what they have done wrong. I will tell them why they have to be punished. The punishment will fit the crime. I will try never to smack them. But if they push and push and push and push to get attention, then it will just need to be once. And when I have their attention, I'm going to have to say to them, I didn't like doing that, but you weren't listening. And here is what you need to know. You can do that in the house, but when you go outside and there is a school teacher or someone else, you need to listen. If you carry on not listening, things get bad.
Yeah, sure.
And if you don't listen to anybody, then the police get involved. And when they get involved, you go to prison because you didn't want to listen. So we don't do that. We listen. And we remember there's a reason why there's rules. When I give you rules, it's so that you understand what's allowed and what's not allowed. When I say, not now, let me finish this. If you let me finish, then we'll do the thing. If I say to you, yes, we can go, we can go. If I have to say to you, I'm sorry, something has happened and we can't go today, I know you'll be upset, but we have to do the thing.
Yeah.
So they grew up, but that doesn't mean that he didn't have his own personality. When he was still very small, Gran died. And I said, I have to go over and help to clear out Gran's house. I don't want to come, he said. And I said, but you must come. I can't just leave you by yourself. And then a little friend came just as we were going, can I stay and play with my friend? And I said, well, look, run round and see if his mum will let you play. So they came back a few minutes later and they said, it's okay. I said, are you sure? I said, all right. So my daughter and I drove to Gran's house, but the place is done. So we get back in the car and we come home, and it takes just over an hour. And there's a knock at the door. And the other little boy who'd gone to the park, his mum was at the door. And she said, oh, by the way, He was wandering, crying.
Whoa.
I said, what do you mean? She said, you left him. And I said, no, I didn't leave him. I said, just, will you tell him I'm home now? So he came home, and I said, what happened? The other little boy's mum said that they were going somewhere and he couldn't go, and so he was just left. I was horrified, absolutely horrified, because I thought, at no point would I do that to some other mother's child. But then she didn't know anybody, because he'd never gone off to play with that little boy before, and I thought, this isn't good. And my first thought is, oh my goodness, and your brain goes whoosh, all the horrible things that could have happened. And then I thought, stop. God kept him safe. She found him. He was safe. It could have been worse, but it's not. So I said to my son, I'm really upset. I'm upset that you were upset and that somebody didn't think to keep you safe. But that's the reason why I tell you, you have to come with me. I said, are you all right? Yes, Mummy. I said, are you sure you're all right? Do you want to go back out and play? Yes. I said, then on you go. But stay where I can see you. So he went out to play. And my daughter said to me, Mummy, is everything all right? And I said, yes. I'm just upset with that lady. I said, but she didn't know that we weren't here. And I don't think they really told her that we were going away. So we can't blame her. I said, they're little boys, it's my fault. I should have gone around and saw the mother. So that was note to self. Don't ever do that again. It's a learning curve. We're always learning from the things that we could do better. And then we have to put that into our children. But one of the things that mattered to me, David, was how do I help him to know it's not just enough to know right from wrong. It's about making decisions that keep you in the right. So for example, we moved house and he had a new friend, and I came home from work and he'd gone home from school with his friend to their house, and so I went down to pick him up. And I got to the door and the mother said to me, oh Esme, I'm so glad you're here. You'll never believe what happened. And they'd come home from school, and where they stayed was in a high-rise flat. And they were up something like 9 floors. So the boys decided to go to play because across the street was a park. So they went across the street. Mum can see very clearly. And she looks out the window and there's all this mayhem going on and boys fighting all over the place. And she's worried, where's my son? Because she can't see him down there. Knock, knock, knock at the door. So she opens the door and there's her son and my son. And she thought, oh, that's good. So then she said, how did you get away? And Kenneth said to her, my son, I just thought there was going to be trouble because all these boys arrived and it didn't feel right. And so I said to him, come on. And he wouldn't move. So he grabbed him and he said to him, come on, we don't need to be here. And they went away. And she said, how did he know to do that? And I said, well, I told him. And I've told him lots of times, when you're out, especially with your friends, and if there's a crowd of you and you think something isn't right, or they say, come on, we'll do something that you know is wrong, you say, sorry, no, I have to go home. And if they say to you, oh, you're just being a sissy, or, don't be so silly, what you say is, you don't live with my mum. I said, you just always tell people, you don't live in my house with my mum. No, I need to go home. Besides, I have things I need to do, and I didn't know the time. So he had said to his friend, come on, because he'd sensed that this was not going to be good, and they'd gotten away. And she said to me, wow. And as we were going home, I said to my son, how did it feel knowing that you made the right decision? And he said, it feels good, Mum. I said, how does it feel knowing that your friend and you are both safe? It feels good. And I said, well, there you go. Make right decisions. Doesn't matter if you walk away and it didn't turn out badly.
Yeah.
You walked away. Because remember, there'll be people who see, and they might look at you and say, oh, it was that little boy with the pink. I said, because look at what you're wearing, it's very bright. Yeah. Or if you're coloured, if you've got dark skin, oh, it was the boy with the dark skin was there. So you have to make decisions, and you have to be thinking about you and where you want to be, and are you in the right place or the wrong place? If you're in the wrong place, get out of there as quickly as you can.
Wow.
Don't stay for anybody.
Wow.
Remember that you have to pay the price. Yeah. But as they came to understand who God was, I would say to them, God's got good plans for your life. But you have to get to know him better, and you need to know what that plan is for you. I know my plan.
Yeah.
Right now, my ministry is you. I don't have another ministry. I have you. And when you grow up, God will give me a different ministry.
Yeah, it's for me, it's the whole idea of the experiences, right? That you had to take them through. Let me use that word. You had to take them through to learn certain lessons.
Yep.
You know, situation emerges. You know, you were there to give them a guide, as a parent should, and then from every situation that he is faced with or they were faced with, you were able to spot out bits of here and there, you know, for a guide. And then, you know, the last thing you said about how making the right decisions, if he had not taken that decision to leave the spot, right, back to the house, then who knows what would have happened. When you started talking about your story when your husband left you, I believe a lot of things must have gone through your mind. For him, how did he cope? How did your son cope? You know, was he angry about it?
Yes.
What was his disposition towards it? Because I know that as a child, of course, we don't expect much from him at that point. But having grown up, having grown up, right, to that point of being a teen or an adult or a young adult, there must have been some questions in his heart. All right. Now, I'm not neglecting the lady.
No.
Of course, I know the same question will also go for the lady, but particularly for him, what was it like?
The first thing I would say is it was the delayed reaction. And I think anybody going through that has to be very much aware that these are very small children. They're just in their world. And so long as they're safe, they're not being harmed in any way, beaten and whatever, then the world is an amazing place. And he still slept in his own bed, in his own house. Nothing much had changed, because in the last part of the marriage, Dad wasn't coming home. And he was never the man who put them to bed or whatever. So, you know, bedtime was, and we always had this lovely bedtime routine. Sit down, and we would have a little drink, and we would have a little bedtime snack, and we would read a story, and then off to bed. So that never changed. Dad went off with somebody that was known to them, and that lady had 2 children, and they would go and play. So when Dad left, he made an effort to keep in touch. And so he's in their lives at the weekend. But it was delayed reaction, because he had to go through that. He put it like this: when he first began to be aware of the change, that Dad wasn't home with us, that he was with another woman and her children who he knew. At first he just thought, oh, it's great, I get to see Dad. And then as time wears on, he realises Dad and Mum have broken up. Dad's never coming home, but he still gets to see Dad. No, that's not so nice. Then he realises about 8 or 9 years old, Dad did a thing called having an affair. But he didn't know what that was.
The boys, raising responsible sons.